What's up, everyone? Welcome to the show. Got a special guest today, Amin the Dream. You know who he is. He's been around a lot. He's the most experienced rookie in the game. Oh, he's not a rookie. He's been in this for years. And we also got Coach Noah Johnson, regular. I'm Grant Cohn. Owners meetings wrapping up. Kyle Shanahan spoke today and was actually much more transparent than John Lynch. God love Kyle Shanahan. First thing he said is that Trey Lance is ready to start. Those words actually came out of Kyle Shanahan's mouth. They didn't name him the starter, but he said he's ready to start, which is something. So, Trey, I almost called you Trey. Amin, what do you think? What's your reaction of Kyle Shanahan saying that today?
I mean, obviously that's a good sign, right? Because Kyle Shanahan, obviously he's the coach. He feels like Trey Lance is ready to start. But my question is, like, what happened from last year to this year that, led you to say that to the media and say, okay, yeah, Trey Lance is ready to start? Because last year, we remember talking about when Jimmy Garoppolo was struggling in Seattle and when he was struggling against Tennessee and when he was struggling, and we were like, all right, is Trey Lance going to come into the game? Is he not going to come into the game? And Kyle never put Trey Lance in the game. And Jimmy would struggle sometimes really, really badly, and Trey Lance would never go into the game.
They were blowout. They were blown out Jacksonville, and they didn't bring in Trey Lance until way late.
They didn't bring in Trey Lance until 3 minutes into the fourth quarter. So my biggest question is what led you to say this to the media when it's not even training camp yet? We're still draft is coming up in a month. What has Trey Lance showed you during the off season for you to say, yeah, Trey Lance is ready to be the starter, right? Now, obviously, I wanted to be the starter. I know many of us want to be the starter, but I just don't know why Kyle Shanahan just randomly decided to say this during the offseason when he has, when he didn't have faith in Trey Lance last year to start. He didn't put him in games where Jimmy Garoppolo would struggle really badly. So I honestly don't know why Kyle Shanahan said this randomly during the offseason today, and he said, oh, finally, I think Trey Lance is ready to start.
What do you think, Coach?
I mean, also ready to start doesn't necessarily mean he will start him. Right?
That's what I'm saying.
right.
Ready to start? Okay.
Doesn't it sound like we have two starters? We have.
He said three. He said they had three quarterbacks ready to start. He threw Nate Sudfeld in there too.
Yeah. Nate Sudfeld's the perfect quarterback. If you want to do what Philadelphia did, if you're looking to tank, if you're looking to get that draft pick, that's. Yeah. So it might be nice if you get that on the roster if they have a 2019 year again and they get all injured. Okay, put in Nate Sudfeld and you're not going to get the first round pick. That's going to be great, but maybe your second round pick will be the second. But I think I don't know. It doesn't mean anything. He says he's ready to start. It doesn't mean if he'll actually start him. And even all that playing time stuff to me even started in the preseason because they didn't even give Lance that much time in the preseason. You get he got a quarter, and then the final game did he get maybe a quarter and a half or 2 quarters or something like that when really he needed to play the whole game.
Yeah. So my takeaway here is with you guys. One, that's not the same as naming him a starter. Saying he's ready to start.
Yeah.
Cool. That's not the same as naming him the starter. And to Amin's point, nothing has changed. Jimmy Garoppolo had 9 fingers and a messed up shoulder 2 months ago, and the Niners were not ready. 2 months pass, he just goes and does a little work with John Beck and Tom House or whatever, and that's that. He's ready. So the plan was, first of all, he was ready last year. That's my main takeaway. Come on. Nothing has changed. He was ready last year. I watched him in training camp. He was a little rough around the edges, but so is Jimmy. He was ready last year. They had some plan. They thought they were going to trade Jimmy. They thought they would start Jimmy all year and that they would either win the Super Bowl or they'd trade him for something, and neither has happened. So now all of a sudden, Trey Lance is ready. Funny how that goes.
Yep.
Double B Studio says, obviously, Kyle wants Trey and John wants Jimmy. It does seem like Kyle is more willing to say, yeah, I mean, it's why we wanted to trade Jimmy. I mean, we like Trey.
I don't think the issue is necessarily that John wants Jimmy. I think the issue is that the roster wants Jimmy. That's what he's fighting. He's not fighting John. He can just play. He can play Trey if he wants, and that's John's one person. It's the roster.
But John is the voice of that locker room too, in a sense. Official BNA Music 88 says 100. Grant started the kid before Kyle and John. Don't forget it either. Don't forget it. Double B Studio says maybe Lynch botched Jimmy trade to keep him. Maybe. Ben Myerson says Amin the Dream. Lots of exclamation points. Shout out Ben. He's at Florida State right now with a lot of the 49er scouts apparently. All right, next question. So Trey Lance is ready to start according to Kyle Shanahan. Another thing they've been saying is they're going to hold on to Jimmy. They're not going to cut Jimmy. because there's a market for Jimmy. The only reason they couldn't trade him for what they wanted is because he's hurt. He's got the shoulder surgery. They're going to wait, and they're going to get what they're pretty much saying everything's going to work out. Stop panicking. He's going to get healthy. They'll trade him. Is the shoulder surgery the only reason that there's no market, that the Niners received 0 offers for Jimmy Garoppolo? Is that the only deterrent here? Coach, you go first.
No, I think it's a multitude of things. It's not just a shoulder. It's how well or how bad he plays. He's not as good as it's his contract. It's 20. It would count $25 million against the cap for a team. I think if he was like $8 million, $10 million, I think they probably would have a deal. But it's like it's a combination of things. So you have to pay a chunk of your cap space for him. You get an average, an okay quarterback who is injured right now, and then who probably will be injured again. So it's all of that.
He'll be a free agent the next year. It's right. A rental.
So it's all of that combined, and that's what makes it with the value. And then on top of that is what we saw this year. We like a third of the league was available. Quarterbacks were available. So all of that pushes his market down.
Yes,
I mean, it's a bunch of things, right? You could take into consideration, obviously, $26 million that he's going to get paid next year. And the team has to give up assets for Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Yeah. Unless the Niners cut him, which John Lynch already said, we're not cutting him or releasing him. He's quote-unquote too good of a player to do that. Yeah. So the Niners, with Jimmy Garoppolo, $26 million, obviously. He's an injury-prone player. He's having shoulder surgery. He had shoulder surgery like a week or two ago. And he's probably not even going to be able to throw a football until late June, probably June, July, right? So when you look, and he's also an injury-prone player. And then like Coach Noah Johnson said, he's just an okay player. He's not anything great. He's just an okay player. That's all he is, right? So, I mean, no team really wants to give up assets for Jimmy Garoppolo. When you look at his contract, when you look at he's just an okay quarterback, and you look at he's injury-prone, right? And me and Ben went over this last week. There's no team in the NFL right now that you could say Jimmy Garoppolo is 100% upgrade over their starting quarterback. There's no team. Maybe the Lions, right? But Jared Goff is at least healthy. But there's no team that you could say Jimmy Garoppolo is really 100% better option than their starting quarterback, and he's a way better option for you to give up assets or willing to give up assets for him. So when you look at the contract, when you look at the shoulder surgery, and you look at he's just an okay quarterback on the field, no, there's more factors than just his shoulder surgery.
The fact that I don't think the shoulder is actually that big of a deal. Everyone says it doesn't matter. He's going to be fine. It was like a minor issue. I think the real issue is financial. First of all, he's not that good and he's overpaid. $27 million is more than he's worth. And if you trade for him, it's a 1-year rental. There's no guarantee you'll want him a second year or he'll want to be there a second year. So it seemed like if he had 2 or 3 years left on his deal and he was making $14-15 million a year, you could trade him. But considering what he's getting paid and the length of his contract, I don't think a team would offer more than a 6th-round pick. Why would you it's just getting more and more expensive. I could see the Steelers wanting Jimmy Garoppolo and being like, you know what, Trubisky will be his backup. But they're not going to trade a 2nd-round pick for a year of Jimmy just to spend all that money. I think it's way more complicated, and I don't expect the Niners to get this. I think the Niners, for whatever reason, are really intent on getting something back for Jimmy. And they know they can get a 3rd-round comp pick for him just by holding on to him for a year. And I think they're refusing to get anything less than that. And that means that I don't see a team offering a day 2 pick next year for 1 year of Jimmy Garoppolo in 2022. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So I think he's here to stay unless they cut him, and they said they won't. So that brings me to my next question.
Grant, I don't think, in my opinion, I don't know that I would even trade anything for him with this contract. I don't want him on my roster with this contract. I'll take him if you cut him and sign a new deal, but with the cap and how you can roll things over, why I would rather just roll that salary over and then sign Mitch Trubisky for,
Yes.
Obviously his contract, but then even next year, right? Let's say a team trades a 2nd or whatever for him, he could get hurt next year also.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Knowing Jimmy Garoppolo,
same position they're in now.
Right.
In position, he gets hurt, and then the team is like, all right, we gave up assets for him, and now he's not even playing because he has a sprained ankle and he's going to be out for 8 weeks or something like that. So why would a team want to give up assets for him with his contract, like Coach Noah Johnson said? And then obviously because he could obviously get hurt next year. So
it's like I can see the Niners in their last-ditch attempt to trade Jimmy. Some teams like, all right, we'll give you a 7th. And they're like, well, we could just keep him and get a conditional 3rd. And they're like, a compensatory 3rd next year. And then be like, all right, we'll keep him then. Do that. Screw your team up. Anyway, I'd like to see that game of chicken. Is going to be interesting. My next question for you guys is, Kyle Shanahan was asked point blank, all right, well, you won't rule out Jimmy Garoppolo being on the team in training camp this season. If he's here, will there be a quarterback competition? He's like, well, I don't want to talk about that yet, but I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, it probably would make both guys better. What do you think about the very likely possibility there will be a quarterback competition at camp this year?
I mean, obviously, if he's on the roster, there has to be a quarterback competition, right? Like, what is he gonna do? Not compete for the starting job? But obviously is going to be a quarterback competition. But the way I look at it is, yes, if you can't get a trade, obviously cut Jimmy Garoppolo. But do I think the Niners will do that? No. But there obviously will be a quarterback competition. But the issue that I feel like with having a quarterback competition is that if Jimmy Garoppolo has the same contract going into next year, it's like, how would the Niners justify having Jimmy Garoppolo? If Trey Lance wins the job, how would the 49ers justify keeping Jimmy Garoppolo on the bench? He'll be the most highest paid bench backup quarterback in the NFL history. Yeah. Right? So like, I don't get how you could justify that. So, I mean, there obviously will be a quarterback competition if he stays. Now, I don't think he should, but there obviously will be a quarterback competition, and Trey should win if Jimmy Garoppolo's coming out of shoulder surgery. Now, if Trey doesn't win, there's some concerns there, because if you can't beat out a guy who had shoulder surgery, and I think Trey can beat out Jimmy Garoppolo, and just watching the leaked tapes that, Javi Vega, put on Twitter and things like that, Trey was lighting it up and making flashy plays and, making throws sidearms and things like that. But as long as Jimmy Garoppolo's on the roster going into next year, there is going to be a quarterback competition. He's going to compete for the job. He's not going to be like, all right, Trey, you can have the job. You can be the starter. He's going to compete for the job for sure.
Coach, is that a good thing?
No. The moment we've talked about this, the moment they drafted Trey Lance, this team's future in the present should have been all about Trey Lance. Yeah. And you keep Jimmy Garoppolo there, what's he going to do? He's going to take reps away from Trey Lance. A guy that needs those reps. Imagine
those how much simpler this offseason would be right now if Trey Lance had played last year.
Yeah.
But he didn't. So now we're in the same conundrum. Sorry, keep going.
You're not setting your young QB up for productivity, because Trey Lance isn't going to have to beat out Jimmy Garoppolo. He's going to have to beat out the man, the myth, the legend. He's going to have to defeat, like, not just Jimmy's play on the field, but his
win over the locker room.
He's
going to have to convince the locker room, I'm the leader of this team now, not Jimmy Garoppolo. And there's a lot of skeptical people on that team. Like,
right, and there's a lot of things. And there's certain things that I don't even know that he can even do, because their perception on the team, and we've heard this from so many different sources, is that Jimmy will just lead us to a win. And the only way Trey can do that is actually by being on the field and playing in actual games. Like, he can't even do that in preseason, because they'll win a preseason game and then they'll be like, oh, it's preseason. That doesn't mean anything. So it's just not a good situation for him. He should be put in the best position. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, competition is great. Competition is good. Like, not in this manner, right? Not when it's the quarterback that was there before and people have a connection to him. It's not setting him up for optimum success.
Yeah, I'm with you. You guys said it. First of all, he needs reps. This is the last thing. You want to cut his reps in half. I mean, the whole idea is to get him as ready as possible for this season, because you didn't play him last year. And now you're going to give him half a camp. And if he struggles, I can't use it as an excuse, even though it would be. So, don't do that. And then also the fact that it's not an honest quarterback competition. You got media people with agendas. You got people in the locker room who've already made up their mind. I mean, in my opinion, there wasn't a real quarterback competition last year, because Jimmy Garoppolo got 95% of the first team reps, but he wasn't good in camp. He played himself out of the job. He threw a pick to a linebacker like every day and smiled afterward, and the Niners didn't care. So, I mean, really, how is it going to be a true meritocracy? Are they really going to say the best person won, or is it in the eye of the beholder, right? If Trey Lance scrambles for 10 yards, Are there going to be half the people on the team saying, hey, George Kittle was open. You should have thrown to George Kittle for 7 yards or 10 yards. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all in the eye of the beholder. So I'm just saying, I thought he won last year. And apparently Kyle Shanahan disagreed. He said he wasn't ready last year. I thought he was. So I think this is a terrible freaking idea. Kyle, you keep taking a backseat on your own team. Be like, it'll play out. We'll just let this play out. Nah, dude, you're the leader. Why don't you make a decision for once?
And going into the season, right, if you keep Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster, let's say going into the season, if Trey wins the starting job, right, and Trey is the starter. If Trey – what?
Well, that's our next topic. I don't want to get into it, but you hold on to that thought. WB Studio says, I'm scared, Grant. We need QC to ramp up the pressure. That's exactly what we're doing right now. Thank you very much. He says, again, is there a scenario where Jimmy takes backup money? Okay, let's just go right there. Let's just talk about this. So Kyle Shanahan says Trey Lance is ready. He also says they're not going to cut Jimmy. And there could be a quarterback competition. I'm skeptical that Trey Lance will get a fair shot. But let's say he wins it because Kyle wants him to, and he's just way better than Jimmy, and it's undeniable at this point. Will the Niners keep Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup if they can't trade him? And I don't think they will be able to trade him. What do you guys think?
I could see them doing it, but it'd be very hard for him to be a backup on this roster with the way that he's perceived and everything. Like, there's a template for what this kind of looks like, and we've seen it, and I think it played out great, right? Philadelphia, right? How did that work out when the team had a certain perception of Nick Foles because he actually won the Super Bowl for the team. The Super Bowl for the team. And so Carson Wentz came back off his injury and wasn't playing great and all of that. And there's the perception of the fans and the locker room had this certain notion of Nick Foles as this like superhero. And it cost a coach a job, and it made Philadelphia pretty much fall apart. So it's not a good look. And it's not a good look for Trey Lance. It's not a good look for this team. Like, they need to move on. And so could I see them trying to do that? But yeah, but I don't think it'll work. And
Go
ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Amin. What were you going to say?
I mean, if they can't trade him, right, like we already mentioned why the reasons why most teams don't want Jimmy Garoppolo, right? And then John Lynch already came out a couple of days ago and said we're not going to release him. We're not going to cut Jimmy Garoppolo because he's too good of a player. So that pretty much means Jimmy Garoppolo will be the backup for the 49ers because I don't think any team wants Jimmy Garoppolo, especially going into training camp. Like, what team is going to go trade for Jimmy Garoppolo during training camp or before training camp? Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the biggest issue that I feel like with keeping Jimmy is that going into the season, let's say Trey does win the job, Trey Lance is going to have some bumps going into the season because it's going to be his first full season playing. He's not going to ball out every single game and have like a Patrick Mahomes 50 touchdown season. Now, do I wish he has that type of season? Yeah, I think he'll have a decent season, but there obviously are going to be some struggles. But the issue with keeping Jimmy Garoppolo on this, one of the biggest issues with keeping Jimmy Garoppolo on this team, I feel like, is that if Trey Lance does struggle, if Trey Lance does throw an interception, or like you said, if Trey Lance scrambles for 10 yards and the team feels like he should have thrown it to George Kittle because George Kittle was open or Debo was open, not only will the fans turn on Trey Lance because they'll be like, all right, you know what, Trey Lance threw an interception or he had a bad game, why not play Jimmy Garoppolo because Jimmy Garoppolo's on the bench, and then Jimmy Garoppolo wins football games, right? Now, I don't think wins are a QB stat, but at the same time, if Trey Lance does screw up, you have a guy on the bench who fans will probably say, you know what, why don't we play Jimmy Garoppolo? Jimmy Garoppolo wins football games. Jimmy Garoppolo will never do this or Jimmy Garoppolo will never do that. So the media would, be like, oh, is Trey Lance a bust? Or they'll make up all these narratives and things like that. So
what about his teammates?
His teammates, obviously. Also his teammates, right? The teammates will also be like, the locker room probably might be divided if Trey Lance struggles, right? If the locker room will be like, all right, we should play Jimmy. Jimmy Garoppolo wins his football games. I don't get, you kept him on the roster for what? For him not to play and Trey Lance is struggling? So
he took us to NFC Championship games. I mean, you've heard Eric Armstead talk like this before. He did it 2 weeks ago.
He took us to a Super Bowl.
Yep.
Right. We were like, what?
That's our leader.
Away from winning it.
That's our leader.
Yep. So, and like even if you look at the New England situation coming into the last offseason, right? What Bill Belichick did was smart. Yep. Because you had Mac Jones and you had Cam Newton. Now, Cam Newton had COVID. Mac Jones obviously having a good training camp, and he was, Patriots and the coaches and Bill Belichick was happy with what they saw. But Cam Newton got cut. Why did Cam Newton got cut? Obviously because he had COVID, but Cam Newton mainly got cut because Bill Belichick believed in Mac Jones. He said, "You are going to be our guy, and we're not going to give the fans and the team another we're not going to let them have an opportunity to be like, all right, and have a divide in the locker room. We're not going to let that happen." So we cut Cam Newton, and everybody rallied around Mac Jones because that was the only guy there. That's a great point. But Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch aren't doing that. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are keeping Jimmy Garoppolo. They're not going to release him unless and they're not. And the teams, I don't think any team is willing to trade for him. And then going into the season, have the locker room. If Trey Lance struggles, majority of the locker room will be like, all right, Jimmy Garoppolo should start. He does this and that. So,
yeah, I mean, it seems to me like, and even it's a great parallel. What did Bill Belichick do? He did not keep Cam Newton as a backup. And I think it'd be even worse for the Niners to keep Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup because Cam hadn't done anything for the Patriots. He did stuff for the Carolina Panthers. He came to the Patriots and was basically washed up. And he didn't own the locker room the way Jimmy owns the Niners locker room. Not Kyle, not Trey. So to keep Jimmy in the locker room and then Kyle to tell that locker room, look, Trey's your leader now. Forget Jimmy, but he's still here. But forget him. But he's still here. Like, are you kidding me? And first, so there's going to be a lot of players who are like, they're just going to second guess every freaking thing Trey Lance, every incomplete pass, every word he says in practice will be second guessed by a lot of people on that team. And what about Jimmy Garoppolo? You think he's just going to stand there and be quiet about the whole thing? Or is he going to be like, hey, George, you were open. Hey, George, tell him he did this wrong and he did that wrong. Imagine if the Niners had kept Joe Montana instead of trading him to the Chiefs and be like, yo, it's Steve Young's team now. But we didn't get enough. The Chiefs didn't offer us enough for Joe. It's the greatest quarterback of all time. So we're going to keep Joe. Good problem to have. Joe's the backup now. How would Joe handle that? You think he would have been like, hey, Steve, man, you're great. You're way better. How would
Jerry Rice handle that?
Job. He'd been like, Steve missed this. Steve should have done that. I'm better than here. I should be starting. Jerry, don't you think I'm better?
How would Jerry Rice handle that?
Brent Jones, don't you think I'm better? Honestly, are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding? I would do that. I would do it. You think Jimmy wouldn't do it? I would. I mean, he should. So, and you already know he has so many people in his corner. Wow, what a mistake that would be. Kyle, do you understand? I think he understands, but I don't know. Human dynamics might be a little bit much for. He's much more on like X's and O's and stuff. It's a terrible idea to keep him.
Even a situation like what if they did something like where you discussed where they don't give Debo the extension and so they wait a year. So Debo's there and all of a sudden Brandon Ayuk's productivity is going up, but Debo's not so much. Debo's gonna be like, well, Jimmy gave me 1,400 yards and all pro season.
Hey, Jimmy.
What the hell?
Jimmy. Yeah. What if the Niners start 2-4 with Trey Lance? Like they started with Jimmy, and Jimmy's on the team. What do they do?
That would be ugly. That would turn ugly real
super
fast.
Ugly. Yeah. All right. Double B Studios says at this point teams are signing backup players. There's still a bunch of starters left though. Teron Matthews still available. Stephon Gilmore still available.
Bro, Edmonds is still up there.
They're not coming. But they're available. Nathan says, time to bring back the banana hands because it seems like Kyle and John don't want to win a Super Bowl by keeping 2 picks on the roster. Ridiculous. I love when fans say that. Ridiculous. All caps. Yeah, it is.
You know, Grant, this could be it actually might be a really smart move because do you think maybe they're keeping Jimmy on the roster to prevent them from giving that money and making bad decisions?
Or possible, or they're holding on to him so long, so when they finally trade him for a 7th round pick, everyone will praise him, be like, "Wow, they got something for him," as opposed to you trade him for a 7th round pick. Double B Studio says this quarterback competition should have happened last year at this point. Jimmy value would drop even more losing to Trey. Seems like every decision is delayed. Yeah, it seems like if they still want to trade Jimmy and they feel like, well, we don't. There's a deadline. I mean. They could trade him at the trade deadline. I guess they don't want to give him $27 million. I don't know.
It feels like also like if nobody wants Jimmy and you want him as a backup, if that's really what you want to do, just cut him and then re-sign him.
True. You can cut him and re-sign him. Although he's not gonna come back here to be Trey Lance's backup. But yeah. I mean, it's possible the Niners really will cut Jimmy and they won't keep him as a backup because they're cheap. Like, yeah, we want that third round comp pick, but we'd have to pay $27 million to get it. Like, what do you do you really want to spend $27 million on a third round comp pick?
Yeah,
John,
it's not worth it.
And
especially those comp picks are late third round comp picks because they're really kind of like they're third rounders, but they're
not top 100 picks. They're like 104, 110, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. So, hey, maybe to answer the question, will they keep him as a backup if they can't trade him? Maybe not. Maybe John and Denise will just be like, I'm not spending $27 million on this backup quarterback. You got to cut him. But we're also have to fire one of you, flip a coin. Who's it going to be?
It sucks that Trey Lance is in the part of his career, where he could just go to the owner and be like, enough of this. Like, get rid of him.
That's what Robert Griffin would have done. This dude says, go away, Jimmy. Oh, it's never going to be that simple. Official B&A Music 88 says if Trey had a bad camp this year like Jimmy did last year, people would say he's not ready. The fix has been in since day one. Again, yeah, it's true. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo can go out there and throw 15 picks in training camp and everyone be like, man, he's on fire. If Trey throws one pick, people will be like, what did he do all offseason? That malingerer. Does he even care? Money Shift says they need to keep Jimmy Garoppolo on the bench so he doesn't get injured if they want to trade him, start Trey. Should they just keep him on IR, give him $27 million to not go anywhere? No way. Not going to do it. I think the 49ers' inherent cheapness is going to save them. They're going to cut him eventually because they're not going to spend $27 million for a third-round comp pick. I'm thinking. All right, moving on. Kyle Shanahan said other stuff today that was interesting. One of them is that he and Jimmy Garoppolo don't talk much in the offseason. Someone said it like, have you talked to him about what's going on? He's like, oh, yeah, we don't talk in the offseason. I don't really know her. He's kind of off the grid. Okay. What is your reaction to the head coach not being in contact with Jimmy? And that's just not that. Apparently, that's not just a this offseason thing. That's just how Jimmy does. He goes off the grid in the offseason. Who's first? What do you think?
I think it's kind of crazy. If you're the head coach and then you're the offensive coordinator, you should have a direct line to your quarterback and be talking all the time. Like, I'm a high school defensive coordinator. Like, I talk to my important players all the time, texting off season, in season, like all the time. And this is high school. Like, just going off the grid, like you're essentially the CEO of an NFL franchise, and you don't talk to the head coach / offensive coordinator. That's nuts. And it sounds like it's part of the problem, or
yes,
one of those two, or both of those two have moved on.
I don't know. It's wild to me. What do you think, Amin?
I mean, it like Coach Noah Johnson said, right? Like, your quarterback and your head coach and / offensive coordinator don't talk that much during the offseason. And we know Jimmy's a private guy, right? Like, he kind of goes off the grid during the offseason, right? When you see other guys like Trey Lance and other players work out, and you see them on social media, and you see them working out and going on vacation. Like, I haven't seen one video in my entire life seeing Jimmy work out or go on vacation in the offseason. Not one.
Nope. He's very private.
He's a very private guy, right? But you have to have the relationship with your quarterback, right? And if you're keeping him on the roster, and if Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch's plan is for him to be the starting quarterback next season, which I don't think they should, but if that's the plan and you don't talk to Jimmy Garoppolo the whole offseason, or don't talk to him much in the offseason, like, that's your quarterback.
Yeah.
That's your quarterback.
It seems like he's approaching the job, Jimmy, as like a 6-month-a-year job. That he's a quarterback 6 months of the year. He does his job. He says the right things, and then he gets to just be a normal person in the offseason. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe you can't. I mean, maybe other quarterbacks can, but you can't because you're not that good. It should be a 12-month-a-year job for you. And I think my reaction is I'm not surprised at all. This is exactly who I thought Jimmy Garoppolo is. Not a student of the game. Not someone who's super passionate about football. Someone who's good enough to be one of the top 30 quarterbacks in the world, for sure, without even really trying that hard. But I don't think he tries that hard. I think he has a very low football IQ, and it's not by accident, because what the hell are you doing in the offseason? I mean, maybe you're all up in that playbook, but Kyle doesn't know what you're doing. You're unaccounted for. You're AWOL. Straight up AWOL. The franchise quarterback, they've given you more than $100 million, and you can't even stay in contact with the coach. Now, I know the relationship has gotten strained, but it doesn't seem like it's just this year. That's who you are. And maybe another reason why teams don't want to trade for you is because that's who you are. I mean, honestly, if it were not a white quarterback who looked like Clark Kent or Superman, what would people be saying about you? Mr. I don't know where you are in the offseason? Everyone just assumes you're hella professional, but what the hell is that? What if Colin Kaepernick went AWOL? I'm just saying, like, quarterbacks don't do this. And you're getting the benefit of the doubt because of how, impeccable your image is. But this is bad. And I can't believe that Kyle said it because it doesn't help your trade value.
Grant, when you see Fred Warner, or next time, I think he's going to be there in Vegas, right? When you go there, or when you interview D'Amico, ask him how often do they talk? Because I can almost guarantee you they're probably going to say that they have a touch point, probably weekly, something like that. I bet they talk a lot.
Carter says, remember when players have openly said that Jimmy ghosts their text messages? What a team guy. I'm telling you, this guy, he's a little hard to get in touch with.
I mean,
he's a celebrity.
Even on the field, right? Like, even on the field, right? Like, obviously, quarterback, you have to throw the ball. You have to make good decisions. But one of the biggest things about being a quarterback is being a leader on the field. Jimmy Garoppolo is not a leader. He has never been a leader outside of maybe 2017, which was his first season, where you saw maybe Jimmy Garoppolo saying, hey, guys, we got this. We can do it.
They were already eliminated from the playoffs. I'm with you. I totally agree with you, though.
That Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't do that, right? Like, even when you watch that Super Bowl where Mahomes went to his team and said, we got this. We could still do it. Rallied his team around him and said, we got this. We could still win.
When it counted.
Yeah, when it counted, right? Jimmy Garoppolo never does that. Garoppolo
he did it when it was time to get paid.
Their team the Niners will be down by like 10, or they'll be down by like 3, and Jimmy Garoppolo will be like, all right, let's go. He'll walk onto the field. He'll be like, all right, this is the play, ready, set, hike. Jimmy Garoppolo won't be like, hey, guys, offensive line, good job, or we got this, or we could do it. No, he's not a leader.
I don't think he is. This is just a damning piece of evidence. Doesn't talk much to the head coach. Hey, what team is more excited about trading for Jimmy Garoppolo after that? Oh, we're not going to know where he is in the offseason? Great. That's wonderful. Okay, cool. More stuff that Kyle Shanahan said. So he casually said that he never talks to Jimmy Garoppolo in the offseason, but he and Trey Lance talk every day during the offseason. What is your reaction to that, Amit?
That's great. That's great, right? Unlike Jimmy Garoppolo,
right,
who doesn't talk to Kyle Shanahan and, the head coach, that's offensive coordinator. If this is true and Trey does talk to Kyle every day, that's great, right? You keep in touch with your head coach. You build a relationship with your head coach during the offseason. Your head coach knows, where you are, what you're doing, right? But, it's just great, right? Because every important quarterback and coach, you have to have a good bond with each other. You have to have a good relationship with each other, right? Where Jimmy Garoppolo, if you're not answering Kyle's calls or not talking to him for a whole offseason, you see him in September or August, be like, hey, what's up, coach? Right? You just appear and you're like, hey, what's up, coach? Like, that's kind of weird. That's kind of awkward, right? But if Trey is talking to Kyle every single day, that's great because that builds a relationship that, it's just great. It's just great for a quarterback to be in contact with his coach and have a relationship with his coach, not just only on the field and on Sundays and during practices, but also during the offseason when, when you're not playing football or you're not, practicing every day and you're on the field.
Good answer. Coach, what do you think? What's your reaction?
I think it's great. It's great news. Like, it's great news for I think the fan base that believes that or wants Trey Lance to be the starter, because if they are talking every day, it seems like that it's on track, especially with what we just talked about before. If he's not talking to Jimmy, but he is talking to Trey every day, that seems that Kyle wants Trey to be the starter and Trey wants to be the starter, because that's a relationship that you need to have a successful quarterback in the NFL. And I would just say as successful, like any position in the NFL or anywhere, because I think as a coach and as a player, you do have to have a dialogue with your coaches. I think that relationship is important. You have to build trust. So much of football is trust, because you're asking players to do things oftentimes that they necessarily don't want to do, or it's not in their nature to do, or it's counter to what they want to naturally what they want to do. And then there's moments as a coach where you have to trust your player to execute and do something. And a lot of that stuff is not necessarily built on the field, but it's done through relationships and things like that. So it's so important, and it's great that they're doing it. I think it's a great sign, and that's the relationship that you want to have.
Yep.
This reinforces my theory that Kyle was the driving force behind bringing Trey Lance to this team. He wanted this quarterback. He wanted someone different than Jimmy Garoppolo. He didn't want to be typecasted to a type of quarterback. Like, he knows he liked Kirk Cousins. He knows everyone assumed he wanted Mac Jones. And I think he was like, man, everyone just thinks I like white, unathletic quarterbacks. Like, whoa. I like all kind of quarterbacks. What is that about? I never said that. I think he wanted Trey Lance. I think he realized it was a much harder sell on the locker room than he anticipated. And now in year 2, it's a much easier sell. He's not a rookie. He's been in the system. We'll see if it plays out that way. They haven't exactly named him the starter yet, but it's also reassuring for Trey. This is who he was supposed to be, right? It's who he was billed as. The guy who loves football, the guy who is always thinking about it, doesn't socialize, doesn't go out to the clubs, is always got his head in the playbook. Well, it seems like that's exactly who he is. Like, are you in it to be famous and rich and to like cross over and do other things, which it almost kind of seems like Jimmy is? Or are you just obsessed with football the way the greatest quarterbacks are? Seems like that was his scouting report. That seems to be who he is. Maybe he's just doing it to win the job and endear himself to the quarterback, to the head coach. But I just feel like, look, what if we heard that Trey Lance was AWOL in the offseason, didn't talk to the coach, but Jimmy was all there? I mean, this would be a huge story, right? But it's reversed, and everyone's like, okay, well, there you go. Yeah, no story here. I think this is a big deal. I think this is definitely differentiating the two, and I think that the players on the team should take a look at this. Like, you say you love Jimmy. How committed is he, really, to this team and his profession compared to this kid that you don't really know that well and haven't given yourself an opportunity to get to know? I think this is great. And this, if he it's a tall task to become the leader on a team where Jimmy Garoppolo's entrenched. You got to do stuff like this. And Kyle needs to tell people. So good on all parts.
It's a good start, obviously, but you could tell Trey loves the game of football and wants to be great just by his work ethic, right? Like, yes, he goes on vacation, he has fun, but at the same time, you could see him working out. You could see him putting in the work during the offseason. I've never seen Jimmy Garoppolo, one video or any, evidence of Jimmy Garoppolo ever working out during the offseason, right?
And it translates. His football IQ is so low. He throws picks every day in training camp. And then he says, well, I'm working on stuff. No, you don't. You're just replicating how you play in real games. With Trey, he actually – the scouting report was high football IQ, doesn't take unnecessary sacks, throws the ball away, doesn't turn the ball over. Like, that's what you want. Sorry.
Yeah, and you got to remember Trey, we talked about this when he was drafted, before he was drafted. Trey was told, you're not a quarterback.
Right.
So, and he put the work in, and he put the trust in himself, and he took and went to NDSU, right? And maybe the one good thing about all of this is essentially happening again is, he's telling you're not an NFL quarterback.
Okay.
This guy Jimmy Garoppolo is. And we know how well this stuff has gone for quarterbacks in the league when they've got that chip on their shoulder. I mean, Tom Brady to this day is still he still carries that chip. So if Trey
he was just sitting there watching Alex Smith do his thing, like, okay, I'm not as good as this. Okay.
Yeah. If Trey can take that and continue to use it to fuel the fire and maybe do some things that, Colin didn't do before is, put the work in and do all that extra
of the game.
Extra stuff, be a student of the game and all that stuff, then he can make if he's given the opportunity.
Student of the game either.
Huh?
Jimmy isn't a student. What's funny, Jimmy's so different than Colin because Jimmy's so bland and stands for nothing. But they're both, I'm sorry, I'm going to say stuff that's going to piss off hella people. They're both pretty boys. They both love being celebrities. They're both all about their image. And neither one's a student of the game. They're very similar, Jimmy Garoppolo and Colin Kaepernick. Very similar guys in terms of how they approach the quarterback position. I like Trey's approach. And I'm glad that he's sticking to it. This was how he was built.
I mean, if you look at Brady and Rodgers, right? Like, Rodgers is a talented football player, right?
Yeah.
But you look at Brady, right? Brady has that work ethic, right? Does Brady have the strongest arm in the NFL? Is Brady the most mobile quarterback in the NFL? No, but Brady makes good decisions, and he puts in the work during the offseason, right?
Yes.
The thing about Brady's the type of guy where he loves football, right? If he loses a game, that's what he's thinking about that night, right? That's what he's thinking about. And he's like, I have to I have to bounce back. I have to come back stronger. I have to win the next week. I have to win the next Sunday, right? That's what Brady's mentality is. So you look at Rodgers, right? Rodgers is great. Rodgers is one of the most talented players, has the strongest arm, can move, can extend plays. But Rodgers really, like, Rodgers doesn't have that, like, Brady mentality where, like, all right, I lose on Sunday. I'm not saying that he doesn't care, but Rodgers is just, I feel like Rodgers is just talented at football. He doesn't, like, love football or like Brady does, right? So, like, same thing with Jimmy, right? Jimmy makes good enough money. He makes the money. He wins games, right? He's like, all right, like, where Trey has that, he has to prove something still.
Right.
And like Coach Noah Johnson said, in college, he was told that he wasn't a quarterback. I even saw that he went to Elite 11 and that he didn't get selected, even though he was doing fine, he didn't get selected, right? So he always had something to prove. And even now, the team, even if you look at the team, right, it's not like the team is backing Trey Lance 100% and said, we believe in you. No, Trey has to prove something next season, right? And he's putting in the work and putting in the effort to try to get better. That way he will be successful next season, right? Because he loves football and cares about football, unlike Jimmy Garoppolo.
Good call. Ryan G. Hensley says Jimmy Garoppolo is gone at some point. Trey Lance is starting. Don Yee and Niners both overplayed their hands. Niners just playing politics, saying what they must. Trey time. Hey, look, I believe it when I see it. Everyone keeps telling me that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be gone. It hasn't happened yet. The one thing that gives me confidence that the Niners won't keep him as a backup is I think their ownership is too cheap to spend $27 million on a backup just so they can get a third-round comp pick. Although I don't know. Maybe they want that third-round comp pick that bad because that's just saving face at that point. So we'll see. I hope you're right, Ryan. All right, last topic. Kyle Shanahan, last thing he said. Kyle Shanahan at the owners' meeting said that Javon Kinlaw is in the best shape of his life, Kyle's at the Niners facility. He's sitting in his office. He's looking out at the practice facility, and every day, Javon Kinlaw, grinding, working hard, looking great. Do you believe Kyle Shanahan? Do you put any stock into this report?
I do. I mean, I've seen pictures of Javon Kinlaw. I mean, he does look like he says he's 300 pounds, not 330, 300. So I believe just because he's in the best shape of his life doesn't mean he's not going to be injured. Like,
Thank you.
Right? But there's also that. I do believe Javon Kinlaw is in the best shape of his life. And I do believe that they probably went in there and they did find something that they didn't find before. But I mean, ultimately, there's been a history of injury, and I'm kind of like, show me. You know, I'm in that show me state. So if he goes out there, he can play this season or the majority of the season, and not be injured. Then okay, but you got to show me. But I do believe he's in the best shape. He probably is in the best shape of his life.
Good answer. What do you think?
I believe it also, right? But at the same time, like Coach Nazan said, that doesn't mean he can't get injured again, right? And like same thing with Debo coming into last year. I was one of those people who's like, all right, like why didn't the Niners draft DK or AJ Brown? These guys can stay healthy and produce. And then Debo came out and he balled out this season, and he missed games, right? He missed 2 games this season, but he still was productive, right? And same thing with Javon Kinlaw. I feel like that doesn't mean that he can't get injured again, but what Javon Kinlaw needs to do is he has to prove to me that he was worth the first round pick. He has to prove to me that he can stay healthy, that he can produce, that he can be productive to a certain degree, right? That's what he has to show me next season. But I definitely do believe that he is in the best shape of life, and that he is putting in work every single day to try to get better. But I mean, he has to just prove it to me now. He has to prove it to me that he could stay healthy and he could be productive.
I don't put any stock into this. I'm sure he's in great shape. He better be. I mean, come on, it's year 3. You got a lot at stake. But this is exactly what Kyle Shanahan said about D Ford last year. He was like, man, he's working out. I see him every day. He's hitting that sled. He is in the best. And everyone was like, wow. And they just gave him so much praise. Javon Kinlaw is going to get so much praise in training camp. People are going to say he is a different person. But the whole thing is like, okay, well, how's his knee going to hold up over 17 games plus playoffs with contact? No idea. And I'm glad that they signed Hassan Ridgeway, probably one of the better signings the Niners made this offseason, because in case Kinlaw isn't magically recovered in terms of his knee, they have a guy who actually probably is almost as good as DJ Jones as a starting nose tackle. So that was a very important signing. I don't put any stock into this. I'm very skeptical and cynical when it comes to these things, but like his knee sounds degenerative. And it seemed like it was an issue in college. It was an issue in Senior Bowl. He wasn't even that productive at South Carolina. I'm like all the way out on Javon Kinlaw. If he could just give them a little bit of playing time and some run defense, that would be nice. But this to me is just either the Niners getting their own hopes up or just their fans' hopes up. But either way, it's probably a bad idea.
Is Ndamukong Suh still out there? I mean, I think if he's still like, that's a move that they can make if they ever do move off of Jimmy Garoppolo. They could, I would imagine Suh would probably is one of those guys that's going to be there into the summer or something. If they do move off him, he's has a previous relationship with
free agent. He's out there
with Chris Kosarek. So I think they'd be able to sign guys out there. Why wouldn't you want to play for Chris Kosarek? But
I'd much rather have Ndamukong Suh than Javon Kinlaw. Like, this is not even a question.
Yeah, and the fact that he's still out there means he's not going to be super expensive either. Honestly, just a matter of what does Chris Kosarek think about X player.
Good point.
The interesting thing about Kinlaw, though, Grant, I don't know if watch the interview with Brad.
No.
Okay, so one of the things, so he asked Kinlaw, what are your goals for this season? Like, what do you want to? And his answer, which I thought was great, and what you want to hear was, I want to be healthy for the entire season. That's his goal. He's I don't have any other goal. But like that's what you'd want. You like don't set the like.
No, it's true. Baby steps, baby. Last year was how upset he got when people said he wasn't healthy, right? He wasn't practicing in training camp. People were like, well, I guess Javon Kinlaw's hurt. And he would put out stuff on Instagram like, I'm not injured. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, okay. All right.
But so if that's your goal, then that's what his goal should be. Like his goals should be to play as many games as he can next year. And I mean, because right now it's not like he's gone out there. He's made some flashy plays, but he hasn't set the world on fire. But like set the bar there, and then what happens. Like, and that to me, I thought was a perfect answer, and that's where his mind should be, in my opinion.
Rich says Kylan John also said D Ford was good last season as well. Coach speak. Here's what's going to happen. Kinlaw is going to have like a decent season. He'll play 16, 17 games. He'll stay healthy. He will reach his goal. He will stay healthy. He won't do anything. He won't have many sacks or tackles or anything, but he'll stay healthy. And the Niners will say he's trending up, and they're going to pick up his fifth-year option, just like they did with Mike McGlinchey, and they're going to regret it. But I'm just here to be cynical. I'm so sorry. So sorry, especially at the end of the show. Like, what a way to end it. Ken says Jimmy in playoffs played 3 games, an interception every game. That's 3 picks. 2 of the playoff games, he threw no TDs, but fans still say Jimmy's great. Yeah, that's the thing. People are like, well, with Jimmy, you can get to the playoffs with Jimmy. Yeah, and then he can crash and burn harder than anyone else. So what's the point?
You know what it is? It's like there's nothing else to really compare Jimmy to because they've had Brian Hoyer, they've had Nick Mullins. Right. So like all these players
better than those 3, like in better.
Right.
That's all we know.
Yeah. Like
his legacy on the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo, 2017 to 2022. He was better than Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, and Brian Hoyer. Yeah. Boom. That's what he did.
Like if your parents were like giving you dog food every day, and then all of a sudden like they brought in Taco Bell, like, oh my God, this is the greatest I've ever had in my life.
$1 menu for this?
Yeah.
So, I used to hit up the $1 menu every night after the bars in college. And then right before I graduated, I had a very bad night with Taco Bell, and I just felt like I've never had it since. I think I outgrew it. 22 is when your body no longer can digest Taco Bell. Apparently, that's it. It's over. I have not tried it since, but I used to be all about that $1 menu, man. I used to be able to make magic out of that $1 menu. $5, all I needed. That's a big meal. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Amin, make sure you follow Amin on Twitter. Subscribe to him on YouTube. The link is in the description. Coach, always a pleasure. We got one more from Ken. No, we don't. Hold on, it's from someone else. Just a second. Stank says, I mentioned this in the past. Jimmy's not going anywhere. He will be the backup. Kyle will create a Jimmy package, LOL. It's just handoffs. Uh-oh. Jimmy.
Great. Yeah, I feel like Amin's growing up before our eyes. Like, I think in the next cast, you're going to have like a beard, Amin. Like, get that mustache going on now. Like,
when Amin first started on the show was 2 years ago. You were 13. Are you 15 yet? Not quite.
Turning 15 in like a couple months.
Dang, that's crazy. Then you got Camp Report who's like going to college in a minute. No, he's not yet. But the Children's Roundtable has become a
teen
college seminar quite soon. Anyway, this is you start high school next year, right?
Yep.
Oh dang! Watch out. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll be back at 2:00 with Jackhammer. See you then.
Yeah.